So the new movie actually is going to exist in the time frame that we really are existing in. So we're about 15 years later by the time this movie comes out. And so we're going to catch up to this story. It's been 15 years. And that opens up a lot of possibilities about, okay, what has happened in 15 years? What has changed? What has remained the same?
How did Ray Rogina handle that whole situation while he was mayor?
Lots of advances in pavement and asphalt.
Yeah.
Hello, friends. It's 2024. We're back for just a couple of guys with your co-host, Pat Crimmins. Happy New Year, Pat.
Happy New Year, Ray. My best to you and yours.
Thank you very much. And yours truly, Ray Rogina. A podcast in 24, like 23 and 22. We talk everything. And we're here at one of our great sponsors, fine establishments, Alexander's on West Main in St. Charles. And the owner, Nick Smith, will be joining us a little later to talk about a new movie he's involved in. But when we return, Pat and I have a breakfast. We're going to have breakfast and talk about some of the issues of the day. And I know you'll enjoy them. So listen to one of those sponsor advertisements and we'll be right back.
Tony, your parents know you're over here again, right?
Yep.
Great.
Tony lives next door. See, his parents decided to just use their phone for home internet. So when everyone is on, Tony's over here streaming and drinking all my soda.
My dog.
Switch to fast internet on the Xfinity 10G network today. The future starts now.
We're going to bed, Tony.
Good night. I'll lock up if I leave.
Get real home internet on the next generation 10G network only from Xfinity.
Well, we're back, and breakfast has not been served yet, but we're going to have a little oatmeal, and let's get right into 2024 and talk about a couple things that happened since we talked last. We were awful, Pat, on our predictions for the NCAA football championship. You picked, as I recall,
Alabama.
and I picked Hook'em Horns, the Texas Longhorns, and neither one of them came to pass. But we are very happy that our friend and podcast contributor, Chief Jim Keegan, I'm staring at his home across the street over here, the
Right.
St. Charles Police Station, and his nephew, Trevor Keegan, who was a starting guard,
Right.
did a wonderful job, and they brought home the national championship for the Michigan Wolverines, and we're very happy for them. There's a conversation going on immediately after the game is over with now about the status of several players and Coach Harbaugh.
Right.
Your thoughts?
Well, as to the players, this whole NIL portal thing bothers me. I think they have to change that. So whatever we find out about that, we'll find out about that. I don't know what the deadline is to report that we're going for the draft. I don't know if Trevor Keegan's going to do that or not. But as to Harbaugh, interesting. I don't see him playing for a salary here with Michigan. So I think that he's finally resolved to go to the NFL and return to the NFL. I'm thinking the Chargers. I don't think the Bears would spend $15 million a year for any coach, including Harbaugh.
It is interesting to look at his record in 3 or 4 places, 4 to be exact. University of San Diego,
Sure.
and then Stanford, and then the 49ers, and then Michigan. They're awesome. The record's awesome. Look at the records. Look at the record.
And by the way,
he's won versus lost.
The majority of those teams were located in what state?
California.
Yeah, his wife loves California.
Well, that's a good talk. But
FYI.
The Chicago Sun-Times today, as we know, has indicated that Harbaugh would be the choice for McCaskey.
Piercing.
Anyway, I want to go back to Michigan for a second and say the following. I thought that performance was just almost pristine. And to our friend Trevor Keegan, that line does not get enough credit for holes they open. Right, the first 2 series of downs for Michigan, both for Corum and for Edwards, are like the sea has parted here. And today in the Wall Street Journal, those guys who won an award last year in tandem did get credit for that. And so again, my congratulations, not only to the whole team, but specifically to our friends and Trevor Keegan specifically.
Well, Harbaugh comes from the Bears, comes from a running team. He's always been about running. He's a good coach with respect to running. He's a quarterback's coach. J.J. McCarthy's got limitations, but the defense played really well, I thought. It was a heck of a game, but my heart was with Michigan, even though I picked Illinois.
And the odds makers are already talking about next year and not knowing where Michigan players are going to go or not go. Michigan is behind, as usual, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, and Texas in the odds for the NCAA championship next year. Speaking of championships, by the way, before we get off this topic of sports, I want to advise you, you long shot players, that if you're going to take a long shot bet in the NFL playoffs, lock your money into Buffalo. They're coming on strong. They're my team, and they have a chance for at least 2 home games in Orchard Park. And you get very cold up there. It's snowy, and I think the Steelers and the Chiefs, if that's what happens, might find that a bit difficult.
I think this is the easiest playoffs situation to predict in the history of football. Ravens, 49ers.
I'm not shocked by that. I'm not going to disagree with you on that.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you one long shot.
Right.
One long shot. If you want to go to the window and get 8 or 9 to 1 as opposed to even money or whatever. Look at this, Pat. Our oatmeal is on its way here. While the oatmeal is being served, we can still talk about other things.
Oh, sure.
And she can come on camera if she wants to. No problem there.
No.
Look how shy.
Oh my God! Look at the size of this thing.
Oh my God! Yes, we got
I had
oatmeal
no
with
idea.
blueberries and brown sugar.
What's your thought? Is oatmeal good for you or
It
not?
is. That's why I'm glad to see you ordered it.
Now, who said it was good for you?
It's good for you. It's good for your system. It's good, and then Paul over there, our producer, I see sausage, hash browns, toast, eggs. He'll probably want some hot sauce. That'll be good. Anyway, all right.
I'm
Now,
not convinced about the oatmeal, though.
let's go to the county here, and I want to talk a minute about a couple things in today's Daily Herald.
Yes.
Namely, the fact that the Long Meadow Parkway, which was initially designed and put on the table by previous county board chair Chris Lawson.
And for the folks that don't know what the Long Meadow Parkway is, right?
Well, yes, up north to our northern suburbs, our friends. And by the way, Trevor Keegan went to Crystal Lake South up there. So we want to make sure that all of our audience in Crystal Lake knows that we're really happy for the town of Crystal Lake and the representative, fine representative he was. Go ahead.
See how it all ties in?
Yes.
But anyways, this parkway is what? What is it to the average person living in St. Charles, Geneva?
Well, Geneva, Tri-Cities, it's probably nothing. They're happy with the Red Gate Bridge.
Sure, yeah.
and any other bridges that were created down here to provide for more ease of transportation across the Mighty Fox. But this is north McHenry, Algonquin area, and so on. But it's going to be a toll road. And
But what does it do? Where does it go? From where to where? How is it helping me traverse?
Well, it doesn't help you, but I think it's going to help commercial traffic. It's going to help commercial traffic move across the river and provide for another east to west or west east point for particularly commercial traffic. But it was going to be a toll road, and Lawson had put that on the table, and there was a lot of controversy on that, and it was built. And now the current chairman, Corinne Farag, has said it's going to be free, and I'm sure everybody's happy about that. And while we're on the topic of the county,
well, free is in no tolls.
Right. Well, not free to the taxpayer, obviously.
Right.
That had to be accounted for.
And are these the same people at the county board that want to raise taxes, perhaps after the election?
Well, I'm not going to make that prediction, although you and I agree that's most likely to happen after the election.
So is making this...
They're using surplus, as we talked about in the last episode, they're using surplus funds.
So making this toll-free, is that a good thing for the taxpayer, or is it just a good thing for county board members?
Well, I hear what you're saying, because the money's got to come from somewhere to support the county. So if it doesn't come from the tolls, it's going to come from somewhere else. So there is no such thing as a free lunch, as several economists say.
I just want to bring that out. That's all.
But
somebody's paying somewhere.
One of our favorite topics on the county today in the Daily Herald again. I see the county is taking over the Cougars, one of our sponsors, and the whole article, the gist of it was that the chairman wants to see the stadium very competitive so the Cougars can compete in the minor leagues at a very high level. We're happy for that because I think it was said, and we have both agreed with this, the Cougars are one of the major county assets.
Sure.
No question about that.
Sure. Now, when we're talking about the county taking it over, I thought, was it the Forest Preserve that
It was
ran?
the Forest Preserve, and the Forest Preserve has mentioned they're going to work with the Forest Preserve.
Okay.
And so anyway, I'm just happy to see that there's stability out there because there was a fight going on over rent and things of that nature before. And so I'm really happy just to see that we get some stability there. We get some maybe additional facilities for the players. And
Are we talking about the kind of updates that would then lead the Cougars to become an affiliate again? Or is it just basic
as a
updates?
baseball fan, that would be my dream.
Sure.
I still always make the comparison.
No offense to the current roster. Our
No,
good friends.
our guys over there that we enjoy talking to.
Right.
I compare it to St. Paul Saints. They were just independent league, and now they're the AAA franchise of the Minnesota Twins. 5 miles down the road, very convenient. But to me, the Cougars could be that to the Cubs or the White Sox. So anyway, enough on that. Hey, listen. All over the news here. There's a court case yesterday in New York City, Washington, D.C. An argument was made about the issue of the former president's immunity. I want to say one thing about that. And I heard the argument by one of Trump's lawyers that unless he is impeached and convicted by the Senate, he has immunity for any act he does. That was pretty clear.
Did he indicate where that was written?
I don't believe they did, but regardless of what's written anywhere,
Struggling to find
I'm
that.
just looking at some logical argument by Republicans at the time. I listened very carefully to Mitch McConnell make the following comments after this was all done on January 6th.
Right.
I'm not going to vote to impeach, or sustain the impeachment, I should say, because there's criminal courts and civil courts that will take care of this mess, and that's how it should happen. Now, we can't have that without the impeachment. Talking on both sides of their mouth. Mitch, of course, is in the second year of a 6-year term or whatever it is, and he's going to retire, so he can care less. But to me, that just galls me that we have inconsistencies in the argument. That to me is the most important piece here.
Well, the idea of lawyers being inconsistent is it's not something new. But Trump has his legal teams throughout the nation have worked very hard to come up with arguments that sometimes are inconsistent with logic and the law.
Well, and of course, the Nixon from the 70s, I mean, to me, it's a joke. I mean, there should be no immunity for criminal acts. And by the way, when we argue that this is just a political prosecution, dear God, it's unprecedented. It's never happened before.
Right.
I'm not worried about, in the future here, reasonable people getting in office going to start prosecuting each other because of the party line. I'm not worried about that. It hasn't happened.
Although we are hearing they want to take Biden off the Florida ballot, Biden off of this ballot.
That's because of the current entrenched arguments of the current group of people in Washington. It's almost like a clean house.
No, it's
You get
not
that?
Washington. It's people in the state of Florida. You know, these are people that are making this argument from various.
The argument emanates from the top.
Emanates from all of
That's
this,
been
yeah.
pounded.
Yeah.
Anyway, but on that topic of the president, and before we get off that topic, the other thing I want to get off my chest is the issue of Trump on the ballot. And you know, I've listened to both you and our producer Paul, and making good arguments about why, at the end of the day, former President Trump should be either reelected or taken out by the ballot box. That seems sensible to some extent. People, of course, who do not like former President Trump, are scared to death of him. All right. Having said that, let's talk about very specifically an issue that many people do not point out, and that is this. The presidential election is really a series of 50 state elections with a variety of rules and regulations in each state. The state of Colorado has certain rules. Yes, ma'am, I would have some coffee. The state of Colorado has certain rules and regulations regarding its election. And the Colorado Supreme Court said that former President Trump did not qualify under those rules. To me, Pat, that's simple. The U.S. Supreme Court, in taking this case, should look at that and say, well, we decided it in Dobbs. We said in Dobbs that it's a state's issue. And conservatives always argue that states' rights is very important. To me, this is a perfect example of states' rights. Now, going to Maine, I would be the first to argue that argument there was the former president committed an insurrection. And the fact is he hasn't been found guilty in a court of law. So that argument is not as clear to me, or is not as succinct, not as forthright. Having said all of that, I hope the U.S. Supreme Court can delineate all of this and make it clear as to what is constitutional, what is a matter of states' rights, and go from there.
Right. Well, we either have states' rights or we don't. Elections are either subject to states' guidance or they're not. I mean, if we're going to federalize elections, then that's another way to go. I see a lot of danger there, but I mean that could eliminate any differentiation statewide. But if we're going to have a choice, a state decision, guns, perhaps state decisions, do we allow elections to be subject to state control? I mean, that's really the issue here.
Yeah, I don't think many people talk about that. They jump right in and say, well, the president has the right to due process on X, Y, and I agree with that. At the end of the day, and you and I have agreed that the man has not been found guilty in any court of law yet. He was impeached but not sustained. So let's make sure we take a look at that Supreme Court decision when that argument takes place. And by the way, there was a chart in the Journal today that I'd like to point out. Talks about the fact that Trump is still somewhat in control here because he is working against the clock. He's trying to get that clock down to zero, and so he can be elected and then not worry about it. And the chart shows a variety of different cases with court dates from March to the middle of the summer. Will any of them come off?
Well, that goes back to the discussion we had about jury conviction versus judgment and appeals and interlocutories and all sorts of issues. Who knows when ultimately there'll be a judgment, a sentence, an imprisonment, whatever it is. Who knows when that'll happen?
On the federal level, last but not least, I just want to throw something out here that we talked about offline here, and that is that I watched the two town halls of candidate DeSantis and candidate Haley last week on CNN, and I must admit that when they're not in a debate screaming and yelling with each other, they actually provide some interesting perspectives. Whether we agree or disagree with them, it was very cogent. Both talked very well. I was very impressed with Haley's foreign policy perspective on things, and I come, of course, from her being ambassador to the UN. So tonight, and we're taping this on Wednesday. Tonight they're going to have a debate in Iowa, and then we're going to see what's going to happen next week in Iowa. But it's the start of the primary season, and we'll know more, I suppose, after a couple of months as to where this thing is shaping up.
I think we already know.
Well,
I think we already know.
I'm not convinced. You probably are right, but I'm not convinced there's not an upset along the line here somewhere. When I say upset, some real close margin in perhaps New Hampshire.
Well, regardless, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. So,
Well, I'm not sure I agree with you on that, but
well, I don't think it does. I don't think the people of Florida are going to care what the people of New Hampshire say. So when it comes to the nomination, I think it's a lock. And I know that Nikki Haley is not favored by the Trump people, so she's not in the conversation for vice president. DeSantis, I don't think, is either. So
do you, just a side note on this, only because I made a friendly wager with somebody who will remain nameless, but do you think in a primary in Florida, Trump would beat DeSantis?
yes,
You do.
yes.
Governor would, the popular governor who was reelected by a large
Not as
margin.
popular as you think. Not as popular as he was. There are people. I mean, just look at the Disney issues. There are people that are upset with him about that.
Oh, I don't know. There's a question about that.
Book bannings.
The teachers are certainly are. I know that much. But
Book bannings, firing state's attorneys.
yeah, but there are other issues there that for which he can be given a lot of credit for. You know, and so the state is still doing very well.
Credit?
And,
What credit,
the
right?
state's doing very well. You can say what you want. I'm not a big Florida fan.
People used to say, when I lived in California, they used to say that Ronald Reagan was a good governor. But then there were also people who said a 3-year-old could manage California. It does well on its own. Of course,
As a Democrat, I would just simply say I would love to see Reagan in the White House as opposed to the crap we got going on right at the moment.
It's all
I'll
comparative.
I'll leave it at that.
it's a comparative analysis.
Last point before we go to break. This is one that you and I have had some conversation on offline. Recently in the local newspapers, we got this report about a woman, 4th DUI. And in the 4th DUI, she had her 2 children, at, I believe, ages 8 and 7 in the car. And the accusation is there was marijuana also involved. Excuse me. So my question, then we read that the judge in this case released her under the Safety Act on her own good name.
He denied a petition to detain.
The state's attorney, Jimmy Rosser, the Kane County Sheriff, Ron Hayden, both protested and said they were going to appeal. A couple of comments were made. I commend both Hayden and Rosser for their position. I'm not one who has agreed with Sheriff Hayden on much of anything lately. I'm not afraid to say that, but having said it, I do agree with them on this. And all I'm saying is now the taxpayer is going to pay for this appeal. Okay, fine. To me, when we talked about the Safety Act, all through 2023, we argued as you release certain people, and you were a big advocate of this, certain people are dangerous, and the judge has to debate whether they're dangerous enough. It's a no-brainer, folks, for me. 4th-time DUI, kids in the car, they're a danger. That's my opinion. And I'm angry that personally, that the judge didn't see this. There may be other factors, I don't know, but that's what we've got with this Safety Act issue. A lot of judgment calls on releasing people on their own good name. When you used to have the bail system, they at least laid out a dollar figure that says, put up or shut up.
Right. Well, as you pointed out, we don't know anything about the facts other than the charge. Other than the kids were present, and other than their criminal history, we don't know anything about the facts of the case. And we don't know, frankly, what's going on in the defendant's life. She has 2 children. The court has to consider what's going to happen to those 2 children if she has a high bail. So all of these things factor in. I can't speak for what the judge heard or what were the factors in his decision-making process. So it's hard to criticize from a distance on this, but generally, generally it seems like the type of case that would qualify for detention.
Well, I'm a big fan, by the way, of transparency. When I say transparency in this particular case, I'd like to know who the judge was. I know we can find that out. We can go to, I can go to the computer and look all this stuff up.
Right.
It'd be a lot easier for a press release to come out and say, Judge so-and-so, the least they're on their own good name. Simple as that, in the paper. I read the paper every day.
Right.
I like that transparency. We don't have that at the moment here in Kane County, and probably for that matter, in a variety of other counties. And that, as a taxpayer, that I'm a little concerned about.
Well, as I pointed out to you offline, the press release was probably written by the state's attorney's office or the sheriff's office or the arresting authority's office, and not the chief judge's office. So
Name the judge.
the idea
Name
is
the judge.
that is not the judge's fault, nor the chief judge's
I didn't
fault.
say it was the judge's fault. I'm just saying name the judge.
Okay, we'll talk to the newspapers about that. And then you could do your own research on
Thank you.
what judge is assigned to what.
That's my role as a taxpayer. Do a lot of research and things like that, as opposed to have it at my beck and call.
You're
read the
talking
paper
about
every
you're
day.
talking about bad journalism. That's a different.
Right.
That has nothing to do with the judge.
And maybe questionable systemic operations as well. Having said that, we're going to take a break. When we return, we're going to bring Nick Smith in here, and you know Nick because we've had him on before. And he's
No
the
relation
owner.
to Saint Nick.
No relation to Saint Nick, who we said goodbye to for another season.
Speak
no,
for yourself, huh?
No relation to some other Smiths, of which there are many.
Yes.
But
former teacher.
yes, the George Smith.
George.
But Nick will be here, and we're going to talk about a new production. If you recall correctly, our last time we talked about Munger Road, a movie he produced in the middle of the last decade. Now he's got a new project going on, and we want to talk to him about it and have him outline maybe our opportunity to get involved.
Well,
What do you think?
I do. I'm looking into an agent as we speak.
Why?
Apparently, you have to be a part of the union.
If there's a spot in this movie where there's going to be a prosecution, I want you to with a cameo role pointing at something.
All right,
Pointing at a juror.
Can I put you in the jury box?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, just a
Or
cameo
perhaps
role.
bailiff.
Bailiff
We
would be
know you
nice.
look good in red.
Yeah, okay. We'll be right back after this word from one of our great sponsors. You stay tuned.
Hello, friends. This is Ray Rogina. Are you looking for the place to be? Voted best live music and entertainment venue by the Daily Herald in 2023? That would be Old Republic in Elgin, an indoor-outdoor hub with classic American eats, beer, and cocktails, plus the best sports bar, burgers, wings, and ribs. Best value? Old Republic. Another good place to be.
Well, we're back, and as promised, look who's sitting between Pat and I, none other than the owner of Alexander's Cafe, one Nick Smith, who
Welcome.
is not a
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Not a stranger to our show. He was on about 6 months ago, and we had breakfast here then. Of course, let me just say that if you're looking for a breakfast choice in the community, there are several to choose from. There are several good places, but always near the top, and you should always consider it, is Alexander's Cafe right here on West Main in St. Charles.
How was your oatmeal then?
The oatmeal was delicious. That's the last 2 times I've been here. I've had the oatmeal. I'm on a
You're on a health
I'm on
kick.
a health kick and diet for January. Also a damp January, which means very little alcohol. But Nick was worried here when he sat down. He said that this was maybe a mob hit. And I just said to him, well, I said, the only reason you should be concerned is if Pat somehow gets up and goes to the washroom. But I don't think that's going to happen. And so,
That's right.
anyway, good to have you here.
The lawyer always walks away.
I've never heard that before. Damp January.
Well, there's dry January,
Right.
and that's but damp would. My wife said to me, I was going to go for the dry. I've done that before, but she said to me, look, there's a couple events coming up in January where you may have to have a cocktail. That I said, you're right. And she said, look, 31 days in January, if 28 of the 31, you have no liquor at all. And on the 3 days, you have a couple glasses of wine or whatever. Then you really accomplished that goal. And I agree with her. And by the way, just for the record, since January 2nd, today is the 10th, I am down 5 pounds and moving down. Carbs is the key. But back to, damp January.
I guess the show's about Ray at this point, and Ray
You've talked about your weight over a year and a half. What are you talking about?
I don't have to quit drinking because I don't drink hardly at all, so I don't even think about it. The damp, dry, wet, it doesn't matter to me because I hardly drink. But there are wonderful establishments, including our place across the street, Rockies.
Yeah.
Rockies. That's good.
Moose and Squirrel. Rookies.
Rockies.
Rookies, where we can get all sorts of drinks, whether they're alcohol or not.
Well, you can also get a good Bloody Mary right here.
Virgin, sure.
Yeah. Or bloody.
And I'm not, I say nothing about virgins at this point.
Before we get into anything about your future with respect to the movies, how are things going in the Karas group?
Everything's great. Yeah, we're excited about 2024. All of the rookies and the Village Squire, the Old Republic, and of course Alexander's, which is where we are right now. Actually, the Old Republic we just launched as part of our menu, a complete zero-proof, section on the menu to kind of, be a part of this acceptable either damp or dry, whether it be a month or your lifestyle or the year. So that you can have a refreshing non-alcoholic beer and some cocktails as well, because I think that is from a social standpoint. You see younger people nowadays. Their habits might not be the same as when we were growing up.
Right.
We've kind of noticed that a little.
Cannabis.
Yeah, cannabis and vaping. Vaping is really. You remember. Smoking has been out of style and out of in charge of being cool for a long time, and vaping has really kind of just come in and taken over that. I think coolness and
I think we're going to see a whole generation of kids walking around with an oxygen thing in about 10 years.
Yeah,
because it's not good for you.
And they're going to be holding a Stanley Cup, a thermos, and they're going to be sipping water out of that.
Right.
Now, I saw the advertisement you were having a big bash last Sunday for the Bears-Packers. Did you have a big crowd there at Old Republic?
Yeah, we always get a great sports crowd, whether it be college football, whether it be the NFL or the Bears or whatnot, and disappointing end to the season, of course, if you're a Chicago Bears fan. And I have to be, very honest with myself. Sunday morning, I woke up and said, I'm a Justin Fields person. Let the Bears trade to the Commanders, grab Marvin Harrison, keep number 10, draft an edge or whatnot. Let's keep Fields. Let's keep rolling with that. And I have to tell you, and I then watched some Caleb Williams highlights on YouTube. And after Sunday's game against the Packers, I did admit to myself, draft or trade Justin Fields, get a second-round pick, draft Caleb Williams, and then get an edge. He just holds the ball too long. That's the only thing about Justin Fields that is just too concerning. Is if you notice, if you blitz Justin Fields, you should actually just blitz him the entire game. He just can't get rid of
the problem with your theory is whether or not this arrogant guy, and of course the most Southern Cal players are arrogant. This arrogant guy wants to come to the Bears. He's on record and his father, I want no part of the Bears. So, would he hold out if you draft him? That could be another whole mess, is all I'm saying. And
his dad doesn't want to abide by the contracts for rookies.
Yeah.
He has his own ideas. Chicago doesn't play with that kind of stuff.
Well, but there were some eyebrows that got raised last week because he did on social media acknowledge and like, I think he either retweeted or liked Virginia McCaskey as she celebrated her 101st birthday, and he actually kind of threw a little
his agents in
shout
control
out
of
there.
his social media.
Let's get to another part of your claim to fame here in this community. And Pat and I were talking offline. Maybe you ought to refresh the audience's memories about your first production, Munger Road. We talked about it before, but in a couple of words or a capsulization, this movie that you were involved in and produced, what was it all about?
Yeah, so Munger Road is, of course, a real road that's just right outside St. Charles here. And growing up in St. Charles,
Is that a toll road?
it used to be a rough road. It was gravel
Right.
for a long time. There's some train tracks that cross over it,
Okay.
and that's the Canadian National.
Or Pacific, or whatever.
Canadian Pacific.
There's always a Pacific in all those names. I don't know.
Yes.
And if you do some digging, there's some interesting events that have happened over there in the Pratt Woods Forest Preserve and around the train tracks and whatnot.
Supernatural in nature?
A little supernatural, a little curious, I suppose. And we thought it would be a lot of fun to produce a movie about this urban legend and use St. Charles and the Scarecrow Festival that happens in St. Charles kind of as a backdrop for this kind of fictional story to take place. And the motivation there was strictly business. You know, if you think about it, if I were to sit down and say, I'm making, the next movie we're going to make is called Candlesticks in the Park, I think you'd have two questions for me. I think the first question would be, well, what's it about, right? And the second question would be, who's in it? You know, who's going to star in it? And so the thinking was, from a business standpoint, if we made a movie about Munger Road, released it in the area, that at least you'd have a somewhat built-in audience of people that are familiar with it, have their own versions or stories and personal experiences, and that they might not necessarily care if Jack Nicholson's in the movie. You know, they just are interested in what the story is.
Right. So it's been on the shelf here. I say shelf. People that see it for a good decade here now, and they can watch it, catch up, and see how it ends and so on. So now, I'm reading the papers and I'm reading the press. You're talking about Munger Road 2, and you're the guy. And so, talk to the audience about your motivation for wanting to take this to another level. What do you see as the good parts of it, and what are the possible downturns in taking a chance and going for a sequel?
Yeah, I think really, if you haven't seen the movie, you can actually go on Amazon Prime. If you're a Prime member, you don't have to pay for it. It's actually available, streaming there right now. And of course, we have this story in Munger Road Part 1 that came out in 2011 that ends very open-endedly in terms of the story, and it doesn't necessarily have the most conclusive ending to it. And
Cliffhanger.
Yeah, I'd say, to put it mildly, it ends
Subject to interpretation.
And part of that was, if you remember growing up, we had these scary stories to tell in the dark books. We had these campfire stories that we would tell. And do you remember that they always kind of ended in like a dun dun dun? The twisted hook is on the mirror.
My whole life ends with the dun dun dun.
So my thinking was, with writing Munger Road, was we're going to have a two-part story, and really the first part ends in this campfire dun 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 moment where we have the twisted metal hook on there, but now we want to know a little bit more about how it got.
Will the new movie start with a little clip of that ending, possibly?
So the new movie actually is going to exist in the time frame that we really are existing in. So we're about 15 years later by the time this movie comes out. And so we're going to catch up to this story. It's been 15 years. And that opens up a lot of possibilities about, okay, what has happened in 15 years? What has changed? What has remained the same?
How did Ray Rogina handle that whole situation while he was mayor?
Lots of advances in pavement and asphalt.
Yeah. And actually, some of those things in the story actually play really nicely in the sequel to things that have changed in St. Charles. Like, specifically, I'm looking at the new police station across the street, right?
Very nice.
All right. Well, we're going to acknowledge that, because the last time we saw a police station in St. Charles, if you're watching Munger Road, we're on the river.
That's exactly right.
And so,
and Smitty's, of course, is there, right?
Right. I used to hunt squirrels over there.
So, the movie, the sequel, is chock full of these things that actually embrace what has happened to the town and to the people that are in it in the last.
So you're telling the audience you've got a script already pretty well put to bed.
We do, yeah. I think some people might have seen this before, but this is actually the shooting script for the sequel. And if you look at the last page, now, you don't want to spoil it necessarily, but what does that say?
I see 95 there.
So you got a 95-page script here. Means we're going to end up with roughly a 95-minute movie. That's
All right.
That's actually
Well,
how that
You notice
works.
when he opened it, it's like those cards from Hallmark. It's made the sound dun dun dun.
Pat, I'm going to be bold here
Oh,
and ask
well,
Nick
here
a
we go.
question, but I'm looking at this 95-page script here. Is it possible, Nick, just possible, that there could be a extra role here somewhere for both Pat and
I think that it's very well possible, and I think I could see you guys eating omelets somewhere in the background.
See, that's it. And maybe even conducting a
A
podcast.
podcast. The camera just goes by us, slowly pauses, but just
we're not looking for any fame,
Yeah,
just
we're
a
not.
cameo.
Yeah.
A cameo.
No, I actually am very much looking forward in this process to working with a lot of people that have helped us, both with the first movie and with this new movie. Matter of fact, at this restaurant in December, I actually got to see our former police chief, Lampkin, was here.
Okay.
And he was with the former mayor before you,
Senator DeWitt.
Mr. DeWitt. And
I think we're breaking news here, Paul.
and you know, it was just really neat. I hadn't seen Chief Lampkin probably in 10 years or so. I think he's in Florida now. I think he lives down there, and he was really extremely helpful, you know, for us. And so there may be a character in the script that has a name that's similar to Lampkin, and things like that I always appreciate.
We know that we shouldn't speak for him, but we threw a bone at him at the beginning of the podcast. We know that Chief Keegan would be more than happy to be helpful in producing this sequel.
I was texting with him on Sunday night. You know where he was this week?
Houston.
Yeah.
We already talked about that, and the fact we congratulated him and his nephew, and it was quite a masterful performance by the Wolverines, to say the least.
So you talked a little bit about like what the what are the advantages, or what are the what has changed, if that is in fact a disadvantage. Well, how we consume content is completely different than what it was 10, 15 years ago. I still have, of course, a couple copies of the DVD of Munger Road, and those have kind of went by the wayside. We're streaming, we're looking at things digitally, etc. What I do find interesting, though, if you look at the motivation for doing this, is the Old Republic up in Elgin is right next to the Marcus Theater, huge theater. And they have several theaters in the Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana area. And I got to see, since 2020, what that theater endured, in terms of strikes, COVID, and basically really just they've had a really rough go at it. But what is interesting is, outside of a few tentpoles like Oppenheimer and Top Gun and Barbie, what genre do you think has actually just killed it at the movie theater?
Seniors?
No.
Oh, okay.
No,
that was my
thinking
guess.
Fright, right? Scary movies.
Why do you think that is?
I'm sorry, genre.
Genre.
Yeah. Well, I think that because people are suffering with America being so divisive, that they want to go to the movies and see somebody hit over the head with a hatchet, right?
I think
therapeutic.
I think it's therapeutic, and I also think that because of the way that we get our content movie-wise, whether it be on a laptop at an airplane, whether it be on your phone while you're driving, etc., if you think about it, you really can't get the experience of a scary or frightening or thriller movie unless you force yourself to be in a box, a black box, where the picture and the sound really actually has your full attention. How often are we giving our full attention to any content?
Oh,
nowadays?
I agree.
Right?
That's correct.
And you cannot replicate watching. What's your favorite scary movie?
Not much for scary movies. I will say All the President's Men.
Okay.
Dracula.
Which one?
The original.
The original.
Scared the death out of me.
Are you going to flip open your laptop the next time you're on a flight, taking one of your trips, and be able to feel like you're getting that experience.
Not at all. You're exactly correct. I remember watching on Shock Theater and Saturday night. And,
For those who
it
don't-
wasn't in a movie, but it was close to that. So I was scared to death. I could imagine in a movie house it would be compounded as a younger individual.
Nobody
So,
wants to scream on a plane. Watch this.
And also, a lot of times there's some risque,
Sure.
possible content.
Right.
Getting back to this, I have to ask the question: have you already, I don't know the process, started auditions for various roles, or do you already have the leads in this particular? You already got that sort of
Just
done
waiting for
and
the
finished?
strike to settle.
Well, I'm asking you.
Well, that's actually it's a good point. So while we were in development of this movie, of course, the Screen Actors
Right.
Guild was on strike, and that kind of hinders your ability to do a lot. And the reason for that is you need to schedule your movie, right? Well, in the first Munger Road, we had the luxury of dictating the schedule because we hadn't cast anybody. So this is the schedule. Does it work for your particular schedule? Whereas with this project, with Munger Road Part 2, there's some characters that return from the first movie. And so you can't make the movie if these people, their schedules don't work. And so what we're working on right now is scheduling the movie so that you can accommodate all of the people's schedules for shooting. And that gets a little complicated, it gets a little intricate.
But Ray, speaking for you, you are available.
Just as an extra, as described earlier, to have a cameo role.
No speaking role.
I don't. Although I should tell you, and he knows this for a fact, I go to the preview of Munger Road, and it's in the big hotel. And all of a sudden, who walks in but a former colleague of mine, Ron Johnston, affectionately known as Big Fella. And he walks in, and I say to him, "What are you doing here?" He says, "I'm in the movie." I said, "You're in the movie?" And he did have a speaking role. Right across from Smitty's, right in front of the Municipal Center. His line was, "They went that way."
Nice.
Or something to that extent.
Yep.
Well, I can handle that, actually.
So is he in the residual thing then? Because he has a
he's
speak-
out in California now. He's part of that. He's up on
Note to
the
everybody who knew and liked Ron Johnston.
Is this the football coach?
In middle school, yes.
Oh my God, he was my football coach.
He was your football coach. I can see why he was let go as a football coach. Anyway,
I did include Mr. Hood, his name. In
my
this.
neighbor.
Is he your neighbor?
Jack Hood is my neighbor.
There are lots of hoods though. Which
I
one
got
we
to
don't?
see him.
Jack, as opposed to Mike or Dave
Okay.
or Chris.
Jack,
Mike's a judge.
Jack was very instrumental in shaping me as a young middle schooler, in terms of discipline and man, the way that he dealt with people that age, so I think in middle school you're 12, 13 or whatnot, is to me the best way you can treat human beings.
Jack, if you're watching this, I did not put him up to this.
Was there an
This
isolated
came
cell? or
right
was
out
it-
extemporaneously. All right. Anyway, Munger Road 2, a possible date that we might be seeing this.
Red carpet date, we call it.
Red carpet date. I hope I'm invited to the screening.
Will it be at the Arcana or the Baker again?
Well, if everything goes correctly, this movie would actually be in theaters, and it would probably be at least locally closest theater to where we are right now in Charlestown. Over on the east side, it would be
They had it last time.
it would be the late September of 2025,
All right.
right? And that would be that would kind of mimic what happened in 2011.
Now, my last question is this. Well, I know when they did Killer, they came into town here and they closed the streets down at night and so on, but it was a long process. They were here for 7 to 10 days. Are you going to do something like that?
Actually, yeah, we're gonna be in town here actually over double the amount of time that we were the first movie, and considerable lot more time than the Killer was actually.
Yeah, and I have to admit that the original Munger Road, St. Charles really got a nice view of St. Charles. But St. Charles was dealt with very well in the movie. Great shots of the city. And what's not to like? It's a great city, a great riverfront, and very nice for movie shots and visuals and so on.
I guess because of who I am, I did, a lot of people actually texted me in November when The Killer debuted on Netflix and said, please redeem St. Charles a little bit, in Munger Road 2. David Fincher is one of my favorite directors. He directed The Killer, and I was hoping for a little bit more out of that.
What was the location supposed to be? New York City?
Upstate New York.
Upstate New York.
Well,
The Finger
St. Charles could fit in with the mountains. St. Charles could fit in as some of the birds in upstate New York. Saratoga Springs.
Way upstate.
Way upstate, yes.
Does St. Charles have a bureau of film and television?
No,
aid and assist the local
there'd be a
filmmakers?
committee we would not necessarily have. We'd probably have some interest, but I'm not sure how much we would attract. Anyway, Nick Smith, someone you should know,
Someone
as
you
we always
should know,
say.
yes.
And as we start 2024, we're happy that he graced us with an update on Munger Road, and not only that, but an update on all his fine restaurants that we're very pleased to have as a sponsor and appreciate your contribution and so on. So we're going to take a small break.
I am going to go off the oatmeal for the red carpet. What do I got till 2025? Want to look my best.
I would hope so.
No carbs.
In any event, Nick Smith will be right back. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Stay tuned.
Hello, friends. This is Ray Rogina. You face technology challenges every day that threaten to steal business, compromise data, and bring your business down. Without a good partner to help protect from phishing, ransomware, viruses, data breaches, employee turnover, and cybersecurity threats, your business is at risk of losing everything. TechWorks has been the trusted IT partner to Fox Valley businesses for over 20 years, keeping systems secure and providing extraordinary customer service, helping your business grow. Call TechWorks today at 630-482-2227 or visit www.techworks.com. That's TechWorks with a Q, TEQ Works, and see how TechWorks IT service can transform and secure your business.
Back with some closing comments here at Alexander's Cafe on West Main in St. Charles. And Pat, it's an interesting conversation, and of course with Nick Smith, it's always interesting. He's got a variety of things to say, and particularly as it relates to a movie that he wants to, another movie he wants to do in St. Charles.
Right. I think that's fantastic. St. Charles benefits from that in terms of what? Tourists and travel, etc. People want to come see beautiful St. Charles.
Well, you and I are both biased. We've been here a long time, but the fact is that this is a wonderful community, and that's not taking anything else away from Geneva, Batavia, Aurora, Elgin, Algonquin, Crystal Lake, all up and down the valley here, Naperville, Wheaton, all wonderful communities that we like to talk to and talk about in our podcast. But
That's right.
St. Charles is a special place.
It's a special place. I used to live over here. I used to hunt squirrels over here.
I know.
Rims.
And
Used to get candy on
you
the
threw
way to-
snowballs in fourth grade at
Well,
teachers. We know all of that.
Statute has a run on there.
We know all of that. Anyway, as far as the other topics we talked about, to be continued is all we can say, really. We'll be talking about those in the weeks ahead. So,
Wait now.
okay, I'll hold on to so.
NFL playoffs, who do you got?
Well, I agree with you that I think if you bet the chalk, it's Baltimore and San Francisco.
Okay.
But I am saying a value play is Buffalo. That's all I'll say.
And that goes back to a podcast we did
Right.
on
At the end of the year at the
Wrigley
Christmas studio. Oh, that's
Wrigley
way
Field.
back.
Remember when we interviewed those people from Buffalo?
Exactly. They were nice people.
Yes, and we felt sorry for them.
Well, I feel sorry for everybody in Buffalo. Anyway, now I'll say this. So,
Four losses.
So for our trustee.
Our
Trustee. And effervescent today. 24.
Yes.
He's got a new smile on his face.
Yes.
Paul Stukel, again, the owner of Nexus Publishing.
And he went with the eggs this morning, not the oatmeal.
And he's just a barrel of fun.
Fun.
For
He was
my-
here on time.
For my partner, Pat Crimmins, who 2024, my prediction is going to be a new man in a variety of areas. He's focused, he's ready, and 2024 is year of change for my partner, Pat Crimmins,
right.
and you'll be able to watch that as we move along here.
Is there a glow?
And we'll be talking about that. A glow, exactly. This is Ray Rogina saying, the weather outside is frightful, but
Great.
inside it's so delightful. So let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
Cold's coming.
From Alexander's Cafe in beautiful St. Charles, Pat and Ray, just a couple of guys. Say it.
So long, everybody.
So long.